This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, we're the ones that encourage you to like and share them on social media and with all your friends and neighbors, because Martin County Roofing and independent insurance agent Rudy Howard now present the African American Scene. In fact, the show itself is hosted by the one and only Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening.
There we go.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to meet you here on a Wednesday night. Before I get into my show, Carol gave me a press release, and I want to share it with you. It's from Incubate Neighborhood Center. Inc. hosts Fort Pierce's inaugural Juneteenth block party. As a valued member of our community, Incubate Neighborhood Center invites your organization, family, and friends to join some of the most committed volunteers who have joined together to celebrate this year's Juneteenth holiday. This scheduled event is on point to transform our beloved city of Fort Pierce into a central hub of diversity, art, and live entertainment. Okay, we applaud the Lincoln Park Recreation Center and St. Lucie County because they have graced this community for over 20 years with a week-long annual Juneteenth commemoration, and we thank them as they continue moving forward. And in addition, this year, the city of Fort Pierce will sponsor the inaugural Juneteenth Freedom Block Party. The block party will be branded as an annual one-day destination for the celebration of Juneteenth holiday, with live performances by Larry Johnson's Essence of Motown, Apollo Vega, K-Love, Saxy Ever After, and Gary Palmer. If you haven't seen Larry Johnson, who happens to be a friend of mine too, from his daughter and Trevor went to high school together. He's a dynamite guy. Does the Temptation stuff. Really good. Okay. The block party will be on Friday, June 17th from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Okay? So you got some time. And for information, you can contact Keniera Gardner with questions, 772-494-7504, or Angela Brazil, 772-971-0469. Okay. Now, for those of you that don't know what Juneteenth is the date that the last group of slaves were notified that they were free. So that's the celebration. I believe June 19th was that date when the final group of slaves were notified that they were free.
Were they extremely happy when they found this out?
You know, as I read over the years, there was kind of mixed emotion. If you think about it, this happened in 1863, and they had been in slavery since 16-something. So they've probably lived 3, 4, maybe 5 generations and knew nothing, or their family knew nothing but slavery.
Yeah.
So at that moment that they were given freedom, can you imagine what that must have felt like?
Well, it must have been hard because they're used to doing something all their lives, and then all of a sudden they were free, and it might not have been an easy transition for some.
Oh, hell no, it wasn't.
It's like losing a job or something, isn't it?
They had no money.
Right.
They had no property.
Of course, they didn't make a wage.
Right, that's right.
Slaves don't make wages.
So
right.
they had listen, I sit here, you and I talked about this once before, and I have sat down and thought to myself, what that must have felt like to be in bondage for over 300 years and all of a sudden somebody tell you, okay, now you're free. Where do you start? What do you do? Where do you go?
And how believable was it to the ones that were told this?
Right, exactly.
There was a trust issue, I'm sure.
Oh my God! Now, there was some free people in the North, okay, but for the people in the South that were free, that had to be an absolutely horrifying experience because. And then you turn around, what happened in a lot of cases, probably in more than 50% of the cases, what they did is they sharecropped. So rather than to be without nothing, they did crops and then shared the profits with the plantation owner. I'm sure they didn't get a fair share, but at least it was their first opportunity to begin to earn some revenue.
It was something to start with. That's what everybody needs.
Exactly.
That first step.
It was the first step to start with. Now, I'm going to read something here, and I want you to understand this is not mine, but it was given to me as something very interesting, and I felt it was kind of interesting too. The title of this letter it's a letter from to this publication called The Citizen, and this is dated August of 2020, and it's titled "Brainwashed Blacks, Racist White Republicans Are Primary Enemies of Black People," and it goes on to state. We're in the midst of a horrific pandemic and a toxic political season that seems to have uncovered old racial wounds. One problem in particular is black people who are brainwashed into misusing facts to trick other blacks to believe that today's Republican Party is more favorable. I beg to differ. Once upon a time, black lives really mattered to white slaveholders, regardless of political party. Nowadays, we black people must absolutely align ourselves with those who clearly demonstrate that our lives, our votes, and our issues matter. To do otherwise would be akin to being enslaved again. The article written by Mr. Tyrone Jones a few weeks ago necessitated this very serious response. Young blacks need to know the real facts as they pertain to the current time, much more so than the past. That is the goal of my response. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to set the record straight. Political opinions versus honest facts. A recent opinion article entitled "Young Blacks Need the Facts" exposed how some brainwashed black people try to cleverly brainwash other black people for political gain. The article tries to glorify the Republican Party and demonize the Democratic Party. Well, that's been going on for a while. Nevertheless, when it comes to looking out for the best interests of black people, the history of both political parties is questionable. Overall, it is well established fact that black people have no permanent enemies and no permanent friends, just permanent interests. Once upon a time, racist white Democrats, and Democrats in particular, were the primary enemy of black people. Today, racist white Republicans and brainwashed black Republicans are the primary enemies of black people. Yet our permanent interests are still a dire need for true freedom, real equality, and unbiased justice. It is also an honest fact that between 2009 and 2016, white Republicans obstructed nearly every effort by President Obama to pass reasonable legislation or to appoint people to key positions. Because of President Obama, Donald Trump emerged as the one deranged, egotistical presidential candidate with the wherewithal to undo whatever good that President Obama did and deny the interests of black people. With such evil person as President of the United States, it is no wonder that we have deadly virus that probably won't go away until Trump goes away. Furthermore, who in their right mind really wants an incompetent, unethical, bold-faced liar for a president? Thus, the survival of America as we know it rests upon electing a new president this fall. I'll leave it there. It goes on for a little bit more, but I think you got the gist of the idea about what the article says. Now, for those of you that might want to take issue with that, I looked up something before I came on the show just so I would have some ammunition here. The C-SPAN ratings for president has President Obama ranked as the 10th best president of all times and has President Trump rated 41 out of 44 presidents. So he's like almost dead last, and President Obama is the 10th best. And we got Steve on line one. Yes, sir.
How you doing, Rudy?
Okay.
This subject, I was just watching a documentary last night, and it started out by saying, when people came to Texas in the Old West and they got lost, who responded? These men in blue. And who were they? They were black men wearing blue uniforms that used to escort those white wagon trains to safety.
Yeah.
They're called the Buffalo Soldiers.
Yes, sir.
Now, this is the problem I have in America. We are not teaching the whole history of America. We're only teaching the white view and rewriting the views that whites had back then to say that, that was the prevalent view when it was not. But you are right about the brainwashed blacks that are doing it to others.
Yes.
And they think that it's not going to affect them. They're crazy.
Here's what happens is, and it's, I've seen it my whole life. There is a group of black folks that somehow feel to gain favor, they must subject themselves to all manner of things that are done by others. And we're the only group, well, I guess my Puerto Rican friends said some of their people do it. But we have a tendency to do that, and it's not necessary. And let me just tell you, today I just happened to pass something out on Facebook. Have you ever heard of the Harlem Hellfighters?
No. I don't go on Facebook. I don't do any of that social media. Okay. None at all.
Well, let me tell you, and you can look this up on YouTube because I got goosebumps looking at the story. The Harlem Hellfighters were in World War I, and they were sent over to Europe, and they were originally sent over there to do manual labor. And the Americans decided, well, they were trained to fight, so we're going to give them to the French. So they gave this group of Harlem fighters to the French. And these guys, they fought like tigers. They didn't think the black guys would fight. And they fought courageously. And one guy, Thompson, stopped an invasion all by himself when everybody else had gotten killed. And he got a medal from France for his bravery, and nothing from us.
And I bet you'll never find that in an American history book either.
No, you won't.
That's the problem I'm getting at. We don't give the black population the credit for what they have done. In the Civil War, one of the most vicious fighters of them all were a unit made up of ex-slaves, all black, fought for the North. And when they turned them loose, I mean, these guys were unbelievable. So we've got to start telling history the way it was, not rewriting it to cover up what was done wrong. Admit what was done wrong and correct it and move forward.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
This is getting crazy.
Just say, okay, we did that, and we're going to do something better going forward. I'm okay with that. I'm all right.
Too.
I'm all right with that. But just to say, no, I didn't do it, or come up with an excuse why I did it, what that does for me, it just makes me furious. I get mad. Now, a friend of mine from Harvard sent me an article today. Harvard uncovered that they had bones and skeletons from slaves and like 15 slaves and like 20-something Native Americans. And they said it was wrong. And they want to try to match up those skeletons with family members so they can give them a proper place with their families. Now,
right.
I'm not happy they did that, but you know what? I give them a lot of respect for coming forward, saying, I screwed up. I'm going to try my best to fix it if I can. I can't ask for no more than that. But don't let me find out you screwed up and you tried to hide it from me. That's when you lose me. I'm just speaking for myself.
Yeah.
You know, but
I'll give you a more horrific one than that. You ever heard of the Clinton County riots in Mississippi?
No.
You ever heard of that one? Okay. Clinton County, or the city of Clinton, town of Clinton, was basically black. And after Reconstruction started, a bunch of carpetbaggers came down and started a riot, basically a slaughter of the townspeople. And the cemeteries where these people were buried were allowed to be overgrown. And then the guy went back to look at it, and he found out that they were bulldozing it and going to build on it. And then they never even recognized that these people have been slaughtered by outsiders down there to start trouble during Reconstruction after the Civil War. And believe it or not, after the Civil War, the Democrats were not on the black person's side as much as the Republicans.
Yes, that's right. Exactly.
But that changed.
Yeah.
That changed. Now it's just the opposite. And tonight they're reporting on the news that they've got a tape they played where the Republicans are planning to challenge people at every voting place, and if you vote Democrat or you're black, they're going to take pictures of you and take your car plate numbers and all of this. And boy, I'll tell you, this is going to end up with a really big problem that America is going to find out that they have got the tiger by the tail. Now, what do you do with it?
I am with you.
What I mean?
I am with you 100%, Steve. This is we are treading on some very thin ice here.
That's all right. I can swim.
Yeah, you know, because you can only kick a dog but so much, no matter how nice they are, and they'll bite you.
That's right. And you know that they leave out some of the greatest achievements in history that were accomplished by black people.
Exactly.
The Cleveland, where the whole town was upper-class blacks. They built it themselves. What happened? That's when the Klan actually started out as a helpful unit, and they turned racist pretty quick.
Yeah.
But they actually burnt the damn town down.
Yes, I know about it. There's a bunch
Did
of
you
those
read about
people.
that in the history book?
No, but most people don't know that stuff. And you know what? You know why that's important? It's not important for me. It's important
for America.
America, exactly. So that they can see that black people made major contributions to the building of this country. That's one of the things that, and then, you know, sometimes when I have a discussion and they go, "Oh my God, you won't let sleeping dogs lie." I go, not that. I just want you to know that we made a very important contribution to this country. And I really believe if everybody knew what an important role we played in this country, a lot of prejudice and discrimination would go away. Now, I might be a little naive about that, but that's what I believe.
I believe that we have to start challenging these misinformationalists, these people that stand up and come to town just to start a problem. The town needs to band together and say, look, this is our town.
Yes.
You know, this is not your town. Do not come down here and start this trouble or there'll be a price to pay. And until that happens, this is going to keep going on. You know, the bully in school was a bully until somebody knocked him on his backside.
There you go.
Then all of a sudden he found out, like my dad used to say, Steve, don't ever be the fastest gun in town because a faster one will show up and kill you.
That's right. Yep.
You know, and that's what's going to happen in America. We keep toying with our democracy. One day we're going to wake up and find out we don't have it anymore.
Well, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you.
You got it. Anytime, Rudy.
Okay, alrighty. Man, that's interesting.
I think all the Steves have come around now, finally.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the other one.
He actually won them all over, I think.
Well, no, I have one. I haven't really been able to win them over, but that's another story for another day.
But minds are a thing that you can only change one at a time.
Well, you have to. People have to want to change.
Yeah.
They have to want to see. That Steve, he wants to see. He understands there's another point of view, and it's not about trying to bash people in the head. It's about letting people understand that we made contributions to this country. And I truly believe, and my wife always accused me of being naive, and so I guess this is I truly believe if everybody knew the role that we played in the development of this country, a lot of prejudice would go away. Because they would see us as equal partners, equal players in the development of America. That's my belief. That is my belief. Okay. Guns. If you know, Justin Trudeau, from the Prime Minister of Canada, he did away with assault weapons. The president of New Zealand did away with assault weapons. But I don't know that we can get away with assault weapons.
These other countries are lending us their example, setting an example.
We listen. Let me tell you something. If there's something people should get out of Uvalde, if they got nothing else. The cops didn't go in there because they was afraid, because they was outgunned. That kid had an AR-15. Maybe actually he had two of them. They were afraid. Now, you chose to be a police officer, so too bad you was afraid. You were supposed to go in there and save the life of those kids. But the point to be made is, if it struck fear in police officers to go in to try to save those kids, don't you think that's a weapon that shouldn't be on the street? And we got Jay on line one. Yes, Jay.
Oh, how you doing, Rudy?
Okay.
Your last caller brought up a very important history topic, and the movie Glory. That was exactly what he was talking about. That
Yes.
Diana Black.
The 54. The 54th. Yeah.
Yeah, that movie Glory brought out. Actually gave that. That's what that movie was all about, and it was beautiful how they had it set up, and it was it was true. It was an action story, and that's what gets on my nerve. I think about all of that, the movies and everything, and the history that was going on in this country, and that kids. What I learned when I was in school, they don't want to teach it because they said that their kids will feel bad. Is that they're going to find out what's going on anyway because kids are kids, and they're going to have with all the communications and information that's going on, they'll know, and it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that you have to tell the truth about history in this country because that's part of America. It's American history. And I don't know why they are so ashamed of it. They were the ones that profited by it. They were the ones that took advantage of it. They got all the property. They did everything they could, and that's why white families have almost millions or thousands of dollars more. That goes to their family at the end of their lifetime than an average black family, because they had property. Black folks weren't allowed to have property.
That's absolutely
And when they did
correct.
get property, they didn't have. It was they couldn't get the insurance. They couldn't do this. They couldn't do that. So it was actually not worth what what they were selling it for. What happened, or they lost it. And so it goes on the tragedy in this country when it comes to racism and Jim Crow. And when I brought up about redlining on another radio station about 5 or 6 years ago, in Fort Pierce, that's what was going on there. I said that's why Fort Pierce is not as built up as the rest of this county, because it's from the remnants of racism.
Absolutely.
That's what redlining is. You deny people money, to bill or to borrow money or whatever, and you deny them because of their zip code or where they live or who's in that community. It goes on and on. And the thing that really, really gets on my nerve, and I was listening to watching something on TV, but I knew it already. They said that Hispanics now are starting to turn to be Republicans because they think that most people of color or Democrats are communists. That's how idiotic the information is spreading, and how people that don't have a brain can figure that out. And I don't know why they don't understand what's going on in this country and the history. And a lot of them give in, they give up. They want to assimilate so bad that they want to be more white than what they and give up their own culture.
Well,
just to appease and be part of a.
Let me just say one thing. I have a very close friend of mine who's Cuban.
Yeah.
And he sat me down and he gave me a long talk about Castro.
Yeah.
So I do understand from him, he really enlightened me about how frustrated people are about any kind of socialism because of Castro. And then my former assistant, when I was still working full time, she too was from Cuba, and her father was a doctor, and he took everything from her. And they had housekeepers, and they lost all of that because of Castro. So some of them, it's that. Now, from what I see now, the younger Cubans are no longer buying into that. They've kind of gotten away from that. And I think Obama helped a little bit when he tried to open up communication with Cuba. Now, I don't know where we are now, but I think that's where part of it is. But from what I understand from my Puerto Rican friends are pretty much on the Democratic train, especially because of the way Trump acted when he went to Puerto Rico after the storm.
Okay.
So it's kind of a mixed bag where they're concerned.
Yeah, you got a point there with that. But as far as Puerto Ricans, I grew up with them when I was coming up in Brooklyn and Manhattan when I was growing up, and I lived with them. We played sports together and all of that, and a lot of them, some of them didn't want to, they had the color thing too, just like some black, African Americans have this color thing about light skin and dark skin and all that. They went through the same thing, and they tried to assimilate some of them, but majority of them understood, and they were very proud of their, their heritage and their homeland, and right to the day.
I agree with you.
They're being treated, pretty bad over there. They're trying to take away the country. They're trying to bring in people buying property up, like from here, from the mainland. And I was listening to a program that comes on every Saturday. The guy's he's a DJ, but he knows all about the history of Puerto Rico. And he said that he goes back and forth, and he said that the beautiful island, and he said it's a shame that they don't get the respect that they deserve. Because a lot of Puerto Ricans served in all of our wars.
Well, let me tell you something. I don't know. A lot of people may not know this. Do you know if you retire from Puerto Rico, you get a Social Security check? Mm-hmm. You get a Social Security card.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was shocked. One day I'm working at the Medicare desk at Walmart. The guy comes up to me and said, "What do I do about this Medicare?" And he showed me. I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "For Puerto Rico." And I said, "Do you have a Medicare card?" Yeah. Pulled it out and showed it to me. So they're a little bit more than just a territory. They're pretty tied into us now.
Yeah, they're tied in. Yeah, tied in.
And I have a very similar experience as you. One of my fraternity brothers from college is a Puerto Rican from New York City, and he and I have always still in contact. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and I just remember growing up with them and working jobs and everything and sports, and we was just so between the African Americans and the Puerto Rico, we went through the same kind of racism and dealing with all the nonsense that we understood each other, and it was not you had some people that were kind of they had gangs and all that, but as people got older, they realized what was important, and the friendship and the camaraderie between the African Americans. And I don't know if you watch, they had this music festival in Harlem.
Yeah.
In 1969, I believe it was.
I saw the thing on TV with that.
Yeah, that was that. Just watching that, and that was right on the. That was actually right near. What you would call, East Harlem.
Yeah.
It was right on the fringes of East Harlem, because I know exactly where that park is, and that was beautiful. They had all the entertainers, all the big, some of the best entertainers in the world were at that festival. But it was never really popular. It was never popular. It was never really replayed until now. That was a long time ago. That was like 50 years ago.
Yeah, I saw it. But
and
Jay,
they kept that in the archive, but they never. It actually was in some hidden away in somebody's desk drawer someplace, and they brought it back. But and then they tried to show the comparison between that and upstate New York, where they had the big music festival, and that was supposed to be the best thing that happened since sliced bread.
Oh, Woodstock, yeah. Well,
Woodstock, but
Jay,
they never. Huh?
But before we go, what's your opinion on the guns?
Oh man, the guns at this period now, with all I was just disappointed when they didn't do anything about Sandy Hook and all these other places. But I think now it's got to the point where they have to do something about it. The Republicans can drag their feet, talk about, well, we need mental health. No, we don't need. We got every country on this in the world has public health problems. But you don't see them shooting up everybody all over the place and killing kids. That was assassinations of kids. But the thing that got on my nerve with that whole thing was the press conferences that they were having.
Yeah.
You had you had these commanders coming out, Department of Public Safety officers or whatever you want to call them, They were coming out every day. It was a different story.
Yeah.
Every day they didn't know how to get the thing right because they didn't do the right thing in the beginning. I mean, anybody that knows anything about the police, how they're supposed to act, in situations like that, the first thing they're supposed to do is go in because they learned their lesson from going all the way back with Columbine. They understood what the strategy was, and that's to go in. If you're a police officer and you raise your hand to protect and serve, you go in.
There you go.
And if you're afraid and you don't want to do it, then give up the badge. Find another job. Find another profession.
There you go.
That's the way I look at it.
It's simple.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jay. Always a
okay.
pleasure.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
All right.
Take care, man. Yeah.
Listen, they talk about this mental health. And I should have asked Jay about this too before we got up at the phone, but I'm going to tell you, I went back and I did some research. I kind of remember this. It kind of started with Ronald Reagan. If you're my age, you remember when we had the large mental health facilities. I think most people who are my age or about my age will remember when they had the big mental health facilities all over the country. In Long Island, we had a huge one. And then in Raleigh, where my wife is from, they had a big one. And all of a sudden, they decided those places were too expensive to run. So they started emptying them. And all over this country now, we've got big campuses that were one time mental health hospitals and residences that are empty. And what do we have on the streets? We have a lot of homeless people on the streets. And guess what a lot of those homeless people are?
A lot of them have mental illnesses.
Absolutely they do.
And the only thing they've got going for them is if they break the law, they go to jail. There's no institutional medical facilities for them anymore.
Right. There's some boarding facilities, but they're very, very few. Not like it used to be, where they had the large hospitals, because I had an uncle, God rest his soul, that was in the big mental health facility in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And he was there for a number of years because he had his issues. And the Lord saw fit to bring him home, but probably his brother's listening to me right now. And those places are gone. So now what you have, we have these people who are homeless, and in many cases they get arrested. And I was looking through here in some of the research that I did, and they estimate, now think about this for a second. You talk about money and that's being spent, they estimate that about 100 to 150,000 inmates are inmates because their mental health, their mental cases, not criminal cases, but their mental cases. They may have stolen something, or they may have defecated on the sidewalk. And something else that I found out, and a guy told me this last week, and I looked it up since then. We were talking about the murder rate and guns. This guy was a pretty reasonable guy, and he said, one of the things I really want to tell you, he said, though, you really have to focus, is that half of the murders that come from guns are suicides. And you know what? He's right. It's pretty close to 50% of all the homicides were suicides.
Country music singer Naomi Judd, when she passed recently, her family had made a comment that she had passed away from mental illness, but come to find out it was a gunshot wound to the head, self-inflicted.
Yeah.
So they've got other words and names for these occasions.
Yeah. So, but if we understand that, okay, there's another reason to have some mental health checks about people owning guns. But more importantly, we need to do something about the capacity to treat mental illness. Do you know the first real effort at trying to bring mental health treatment back into the mainstream came from the Affordable Care Act? You think about it, before the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare demanded that mental health treatment is part of your health care plan. Prior to that, most of us can speak to that was not in the plan. Now, fortunately, most of us may not have needed it, but it wasn't there. It is now. That's another little gem that we can thank President Obama for, because he demanded that be part of the essential benefits that were included in the Affordable Care Act, which was an element that had been missing for some time, mental health treatment. Now, that treatment not only includes mental health, that also includes some drug treatment too that is in there. But you know what? I think we have to have a reckoning with who we are. And America is violent. We're a violent, and this is going to piss somebody off, I know. We are a violent country, and we are a violent people. There are other countries that have mental health, and they have some of the same issues we have, but they don't have all the murders that we have. They don't have all the guns we have. There's something in our DNA that makes us a little nasty. Unfortunately. Now, there's somebody sitting out there now saying, no. Well, you know what? I'd like for you to prove me wrong, but the evidence all leads us to the conclusion America is full of violent people. We just have violent people. That's a hard pill to swallow it, but we need to swallow that pill. And if we look back over time and we look at how our country was built basically on a lot of violence. Unfortunately, it's part of who we are. And we have Steve. Yes, sir.
Rudy, you're hitting on something that, to me as a teacher, is incredibly important and incredibly sensitive. You're talking about the mentality, the mindset, the mental health of our people in this country, and in my case, especially with our youth. And I've been listening to this here I've been listening to you for all day long, but you've hit a point that I wish that we could take a little more intense effort on addressing in this country. And we're talking about the family unit. I don't know if you agree with me, or if you or Cliff agree with me on this, but we're dealing with every effort to try to maintain the family unit in this country.
And I have always believed, and not always, but in my years as a teacher, I have come to realize that the maintenance of a family unit is so incredibly important to the mental health of our entire society. I don't know if this makes any sense to you.
Yes, I'm not sure that I could totally agree with you. I do think it's important, but
How would you not agree with that? I mean,
well,
to have a
I'll answer that for you. I can tell you why I don't necessarily agree with that. Because from a historical perspective, frequently black women were forced to raise kids by themselves. And that went on for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Excuse me, from what I understand, forgive me for interrupting, but from what I understand, the family unit in the black community was very well intact up until the 1950s or the 1960s.
No.
Now, I don't have my facts in front of me right now, but that's what I understood, that the family unit in the black community was even stronger than the white community up until the 1950s or the 1960s. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe we need to do some research on this, but this is what I've understood.
Okay, well, what I'm going to tell you is, yes, the family unit was a very important part of me growing up. Listen, I grew up with a mother and father. I don't know anything else. And for a long time, I didn't understand, but a lot of the kids that I grew up with, all they had was a mother. Quite a few of the kids on my block, all they had was a mother. So,
exactly.
All right, so that was not uncommon. And then when you throw in Vietnam into that mix, you had a lot of young black men that went into serve in Vietnam, which left a lot of single mothers again. So
yes, it did.
Okay, so that's part of what happened. Now, do I think, if you're going to ask me, do I think a kid is better off with a full nuclear family unit? I'm going to say yes. How could I say no to that? How could I say no to that?
And it's even happening in the white community. The demise of the total complete family unit, even within the white community, is also declining. And I know this. I even see it in my classroom.
Yes, it is. But what I'm saying though is that you have some outstanding individuals who were raised by single parent families.
No denial. I agree.
Okay, so I do think it's important though. I couldn't tell you that. Listen, I like I said, I don't know what it's like. My son doesn't know what it's like not to have a mother and father.
My children don't know what it's like to have a different mother and father.
Yes.
I don't know what it is to have a different mother and father.
Exactly.
I have been blessed.
You and I grew up the same way. We don't know what that's like. Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's funny.
Maybe we need to start. Can we start looking at something like this? I mean,
yeah,
I understand.
I'd be glad to do that.
I'd
be glad
to do this.
And listen,
but
I would like for
I
you
want,
to.
I want this to be thrown into the discussion.
I would like for you to participate in that discussion too, if I'm going to do that.
And we still have to deal with CRT.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for taking my call.
Okay, Steve. Alrighty. Yeah.
Another Steve. Steve is the favorite name to use when calling Rudy's show,
Yeah,
I guess.
Seems like it, yeah.
Do we have any more Steves that'd like to give us a call?
Yeah. That Steve I like too, though. He's always gives me I like intelligent conversation. You know that. That's just, I like that.
Not dominating conversation, intelligent conversation.
Intelligent conversation, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he makes a good point, and I don't know. There's no way I could possibly deny the fact that a person was better off with a family unit than not having a family unit. But listen, I want you to think about something else, and I want to tackle this in the weeks to come. and I want you to give this some real honest thought. Why do you vote the way you vote? Think about it. Why do you vote the way you vote? And the reason why I'm saying that is, I told you earlier, a lot of you hate Obama, hate him. He's ranked the 10th best president in the history of the United States. 10th best. That means he was no slouch. The historians, the multiple, and this is not all lefties, this is a group of historians that come together and they evaluate the performance of presidents, policy, administrations, effectiveness. They look the whole gamut. And when they do that, and they got through all of that, he comes out number 10 out of 44. And President Trump comes up 41 out of 44. And some of you are still in love with him. He's had more people indicted than any president in the history of the United States, and you still love him. I am at a loss. That's why I'm asking you to please, because I think for some of you, I know for some of you, and you won't admit it, but I'll admit it for you, some of you got spooked by President Obama getting elected president, and it pushed you to the right. Yeah.
I'm still moved by Obama's inauguration, how high that man held his head. I never seen a man hold his head so high. And there he is standing. He was being inaugurated, the first black president of the United States of America. Look at him hold his head up high. Oh my gosh, that was inspiring.
Oh yeah, he was. That night, my mother called me up on the phone, crying and saying how glad she was she lived long enough to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, she was boo-hooing on the phone.
Wow.
But I just want, you know what, let's just be honest. I just want an objective measure, because I want you to think carefully. I don't want you to make this vote. I don't want you to vote Democrat or Republican. I just want you to vote smart. And voting smart means I want you to know why you are supporting the candidate that you're going to support. Don't do it strictly out of emotion. Do it based on substance and based on fact.
That means do some research.
Please.
Don't just go along with the crowd. Do your own research.
And you know what else? I'll accept the challenge of you calling me up and saying, I want to know about this. And I will research it and come back and give you an answer if that will help you make up your mind. I promise you I'd do that for you.
Wow.
But listen, I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in to the African American Scene. God bless and be safe. And I will see you next Wednesday right here for the African American Scene.
The African American Scene with Rudy Howard, presented by Martin County Roofing and independent insurance agent Rudy Howard. You want to find out about the Affordable Care Act? Rudy's the guy to ask. Tune in every Wednesday evening in the 6 p.m. hour for the African American Scene, and archives are on YouTube under WPSL TV for the African American Scene. You can go binge watch you some Rudy Howard programs right here. This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast on Google Home, Alexa, and of course the TuneIn app on your smartphone.